June 6, Aris 1944. Operation Overlord. 156,000 Allied troops storm the beaches of Normandy. History books tell you about Eisenhower's decision, Montgomery's plans, the paratroopers who dropped in darkness. They don't tell you about the women who made it possible. The resistance fighter who guided bombers to German ammunition depots. The radio operator who transmitted invasion coordinates while Gestapo agents searched house by house. The French teenager who counted Wehrmacht divisions and sent numbers to London. The nurse who kept wounded soldiers alive on landing craft. The codebreaker who cracked German defensive positions. Without them, D-Day fails, yet their names vanish from the official record. Who were these women? What did they risk? How many died so Allied forces could land on French soil? The truth sits in classified files, resistance archives, and unmarked graves across occupied Europe. If you value documented World War II history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also, comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from the French National Archives and SOE personnel files. Now back to the story. Marie-Madeleine Fourcade runs the largest resistance network in occupied France. Alliance spans from Brittany to the Mediterranean. Over 3,000 agents. She calls them her Noah's Ark because each operative takes an animal codename: hedgehog, elephant, tiger. Her own codename is Hérisson. Marie-Madeleine coordinates with British intelligence from a villa in Aix-en-Provence. She's 34 years old, mother of 2 children. Her network maps every German fortification along the Atlantic Wall, January 1944. Alliance agents begin Operation Jade Amical. They photograph German defensive positions from Calais to Cherbourg, concrete bunkers, artillery placements, minefields, tank traps. Every detail goes to London via radio transmission. The intelligence fills gaps in Allied reconnaissance photos. Fourcade's agents count Wehrmacht divisions. They time patrol schedules. They measure the height of beach obstacles. Violette Sabo parachutes into France on April 5, 1944. She's 23 years old, born in Paris to a French mother and British father. Her husband Etienne died at El Alamein. Special operations executive trained her at Beaulieu Manor. Pistol shooting, silent killing, radio operation, explosives. Her mission is coordinating with Maquis resistance groups in central France. She carries a suitcase radio and 50,000 francs in occupation currency. Szabo links up with resistance leader Jacques Poirier in Limoges. Together, they organize sabotage operations on German supply lines, railroad bridges, telegraph poles, ammunition warehouses. On June 6th, while Allied forces land in Normandy, Szabo's team cuts rail connections between German reserves and the invasion beaches. Wehrmacht reinforcements heading north find twisted steel and severed communications. June 10th. Szabo and Poirier are driving through Salon-la-Tour when they encounter a German roadblock. SS troops searching vehicles. Machine gun fire shatters the windshield. Poirier escapes into woods. Szabo provides covering fire with her Stain gun until ammunition runs out. She destroys her radio and codebook. German soldiers capture her alive. Noor Inayat Khan transmits from occupied Paris. She's 30 years old, born in Moscow to an Indian father and American mother, descendant of Tipu Sultan, fluent in French and English. SOE recruited her in 1943 for her radio skills. Codename Madeleine. She operates from different locations every night. Gestapo direction-finding vans patrol Paris, hunting for resistance transmitters. Khan's radio messages coordinate arms drops for French resistance groups. She confirms reception of weapons containers, reports German troop movements, passes intelligence from resistance networks to London. Her transmissions help plan bombing raids on German supply depots. Each message risks capture. Radio detection equipment can pinpoint a transmission in 15 minutes. October 13th, 1943. German agents arrest Khan at her safe house in Suresnes. Someone betrayed her location. They find her radio equipment and one-time code pads under interrogation. She refuses to reveal other agents' identities. Gestapo transfers her to Pforzheim prison in Germany. They chain her hands and feet. Classification: highly dangerous prisoner. Virginia Hall operates in central France. She's 37 years old, American citizen working for SOE. Prosthetic leg from a hunting accident. The Gestapo calls her the limping lady. Most wanted person in occupied France. She evades capture for 2 years. Her network rescues downed Allied airmen and guides them to Spain. Hall coordinates with resistance groups around Lyon. She arranges parachute drops of weapons and supplies. Her agents sabotage German communications cables. They derail trains carrying Wehrmacht equipment. Hall reports German defensive preparations to London. She photographs coastal fortifications during reconnaissance missions to Normandy. November 1942. German occupation forces take control of Vichy, France. Hall's cover is blown. Gestapo agents search Lyon for the limping lady. She escapes across the Pyrenees on foot. Walking stick disguises her prosthetic leg. Spanish border guards arrest her briefly, then release her to British consulates. She returns to France by parachute drop in March 1944. André de Jong creates the Comet Line escape route. She's 24 years old. Belgian resistance fighter operating from Brussels. Her network guides Allied airmen shot down over occupied Europe. The route runs from Belgium through France to Spain. Over 800 airmen reach safety through Comet Line operations. De Jong personally escorts 33 airmen to Spain. She crosses the Pyrenees on foot multiple times. German patrols guard mountain passes. Spanish civil guard arrest escapers on the other side. Each crossing takes 3 days through snow and rock. De Jong carries food, medical supplies, and forged documents. She speaks English, French, Flemish, and Spanish. January 15, 1943. German agents capture de Jong near the Spanish border. Betrayal by a double agent. They transport her to Ravensbrück concentration camp, prison number 27,106. She survives forced labor and medical experiments. Liberation comes in April 1945. If you value documented World War II history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also, comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from SOE personnel files and French resistance archives. Now back to the story. Nancy Wake works with Maquis resistance groups in Auvergne. She's 32 years old. Australian journalist married to French industrialist Henri Fiocca. Gestapo bounty on her head, 5 million francs. They call her the White Mouse. She escapes capture through cunning and luck. Wake parachutes back into France on February 29, 1944. Wake coordinates between different Maquis groups and British intelligence. She organizes arms drops and distributes weapons. Her groups sabotage German supply convoys. They attack Wehrmacht patrols. Wake personally kills a German sentry with her bare hands during a raid. No hesitation, no remorse. The mission continues. April 19, 1944. Wake's radio operator is captured. Communication with London is severed. She bicycles 500 kilometers to find another resistance radio. The journey takes 3 days through German checkpoints. She carries false papers identifying her as a traveling saleswoman. Wake re-establishes contact and resumes operations. Yvonne Cormeau transmits from southwestern France. She's 34 years old, British citizen of French birth. SOE trains her as radio operator, codename Annette. She parachutes into France on August 22, 1943. Her mission is establishing communications for resistance groups in Gascony. Cormeau operates from farm buildings and forest clearings. She changes location every few days. German detection vans patrol the countryside searching for illegal transmissions. She trains local resistance members in radio procedure. Her messages coordinate arms drops and report German troop movements. Each transmission lasts exactly 15 minutes to avoid detection. Cormeau transmits continuously for 13 months without capture. She sends over 400 messages to London. Her intelligence reports Wehrmacht defensive positions and supply routes. This information helps Allied planners target bombing raids and plan invasion routes. She operates until liberation in August 1944. Christine Granville infiltrates German-occupied territory through Hungary. She's 34 years old. Polish countess born Krystyna Skarbek. SOE recruits her for missions in Eastern Europe. She speaks 7 languages fluently. Granville skis across Tatra Mountains carrying intelligence reports. She photographs German fortifications and troop concentrations. February 1944, Granville parachutes into southern France. She works with resistance groups in Vercors Massif. Her mission is coordinating guerrilla operations against German supply lines. Granville poses as a French peasant woman. She carries messages between different Maquis groups. German patrols search villages, but never suspect her. August 19, 1944. Granville negotiates the release of 2 captured SOE agents from German custody. She convinces a German commander that Allied forces are approaching and resistance will show mercy to collaborators. The Germans release the prisoners and withdraw. Granville's psychological warfare saves lives without firing a shot. Odette Sansom operates in southeastern France. She's 31 years old, French-born British citizen living in England. SOE recruits her after Germany invades France. Her husband is fighting in North Africa. She leaves 3 daughters in England to join resistance operations. Sansom parachutes into France on October 31, 1942. Sansom works with Peter Churchill's resistance network in Cannes. They organize sabotage operations against German installations, railroad lines, communication cables, military warehouses. Sansom poses as Churchill's wife to explain their constant meetings. German counterintelligence begins surveillance of their activities. April 16, 1943. German agents arrest Sansom and Churchill at their safe house. They torture her for information about other resistance members. Hot irons on her back, fingernails torn out. She reveals nothing. German interrogators threaten to execute her. Sansom claims she is Churchill's wife and related to the British Prime Minister. The lie saves her life. Diana Roden transmits from occupied France. She's 28 years old, British citizen born in London to French mother. SOE trains her as radio operator and organizer, codename Paulette. She parachutes into France on June 16, 1943. Her mission is establishing communications for resistance networks in central France. Roden operates from Clairvaux-le-Lac in the Jura Mountains. She coordinates arms drops and reports German defensive preparations. Her messages help Allied intelligence assess German strength along the Atlantic Wall. Roden trains local resistance members in radio procedure and sabotage techniques. She organizes attacks on railway infrastructure, November 18, 1943. German counterintelligence arrests Roden at her safe house. They torture her for information about resistance operations. She refuses to reveal agent identities or network locations. Gestapo transfers her to Natzweiler concentration camp. She dies in the camp on July 6, 1944. Madeleine d'Amamont parachutes into France on February 28, 1944. She's 31 years old. French citizen recruited by SOE in London, trained as radio operator, codename Martine. Her mission is re-establishing communications with resistance groups whose radios were captured. German counterintelligence has infiltrated several networks. D'Amamont lands near Angers, in German-controlled territory. Unknown to her, the reception committee includes German agents posing as resistance fighters. They arrest her immediately after landing. D'Amamont carried one-time code pads and frequency schedules. This intelligence compromises other SOE operations in France. The Germans use D'Amamont's radio codes to transmit false messages to London. They request more agent drops and weapons deliveries. SOE suspects the deception, but cannot confirm it. Some operations continue based on compromised intelligence. D'Amamont dies at Dachau concentration camp on September 13, 1944. Eileen Neon operates as radio courier in occupied Paris. She's 23 years old, British citizen of French birth. SOE recruits her for missions in France. Codename Rose. She parachutes into France on March 2, 1944. Her mission is delivering messages between resistance cells and SOE radio operators. Neon poses as a shopgirl working in central Paris. She memorizes coded messages and delivers them across the city. German checkpoints and identity controls Make movement dangerous. Nian carries false papers and maintains her cover story under questioning. She delivers intelligence reports from resistance networks to radio operators for transmission to London, July 25, 1944. German agents arrest Nian during a routine identity check in Paris. They torture her for information about resistance operations. She maintains her cover story as an innocent French civilian. Gestapo transfers her to Ravensbrück concentration camp. Nian escapes during a prisoner transport in April 1945. Lillian Rolfe transmits from central France. She's 30 years old, British citizen of Brazilian birth. SOE trains her as radio operator. Codename Nadine. She parachutes into France on April 5th, 1944. Her mission is establishing communications for resistance groups, preparing sabotage operations during the Allied invasion. Rolfe operates from the Loire Valley. She coordinates with Maquis resistance groups attacking German supply lines. Her messages report Wehrmacht troop movements and defensive preparations. Rolfe transmits intelligence about German reserves that could reinforce Normandy beaches. This information helps Allied planners assess invasion risks. June 30th, 1944. German counterintelligence arrests Rolfe at her transmission site. They capture her radio equipment and codebooks. Under interrogation, she refuses to reveal network details or agent identities. Gestapo transfers her to Natzweiler concentration camp. She dies there on January 24th, 1945. Yolande Beekman parachutes into France on September 18th, 1943. She's 22 years old, British citizen born in Paris to Swiss father and English mother. SOE trains her as radio operator. Codename Yvonne. Her mission is establishing communications for resistance networks in central France, preparing for Allied invasion. Beekman operates from Saint-Quentin region. She coordinates arms drops and reports German fortification work. Her messages describe Wehrmacht defensive positions and patrol schedules. Beekman trains resistance members in radio procedure and maintains contact with multiple Maquis groups. German direction-finding equipment searches for her transmissions. January 13th, 1944. German agents arrest Beekman during a resistance meeting. Counterintelligence had infiltrated the local network. They torture her for information about other agents and transmission schedules. Beekman reveals nothing useful to German interrogators. She dies at Dachau concentration camp on September 13th, 1944. The numbers tell the story. 39 female SOE agents parachuted into occupied France. 15 died in concentration camps or under interrogation. Survival rate, 61%. Their radio transmissions provided critical intelligence for D-Day planning, German defensive positions, troop strengths, supply routes. Without this information, Allied casualties on June 6th would have been catastrophic. French resistance networks included over 40,000 women. They guided Allied bombers to targets, hid weapons and supplies, transported intelligence reports, sheltered escaped prisoners, sabotaged German equipment. The Gestapo executed 3,000 French women for resistance activities. Their sacrifice made Allied victory possible. June 1944. Allied forces advance inland from Normandy beaches. German reinforcements cannot reach the front lines. Railroad bridges lie twisted and broken. Communication cables are cut. Supply warehouses smolder in ruins. Wehrmacht commanders complain they are fighting blind and deaf. Women resistance fighters created this chaos with bicycle rides and radio messages. The official D-Day histories mention Eisenhower and Montgomery. They list division commanders and casualty figures. Search the archives for another story. Women's names fill classified files marked most secret. Their photographs show ordinary faces hiding extraordinary courage. Teachers, secretaries, students, mothers. They volunteered for missions with 50% survival rates. Violette Szabo dies at Ravensbrück on February 5th, 1945. Nur Inayat Khan is executed at Dachau on September 13th, 1944. Their final locations remained classified for decades. No marked graves, no memorials, just file numbers in MI6 archives. Pearl Witherington commands 1,500 Maquis fighters in central France. She's 29 years old. British citizen born in Paris. SOE parachutes her into France on September 22, 1943, codename Marie. Her mission is organizing resistance groups in Indre department for sabotage operations during the Allied invasion. Witherington poses as a cosmetics saleswoman traveling between towns. This cover allows movement through German checkpoints without suspicion. She carries makeup samples and order forms. Hidden compartments contain radio crystals and coded messages. Witherington recruits local resistance members and coordinates arms drops from London, June 5, 1944. Witherington receives invasion alert messages from London. She orders simultaneous sabotage operations across her territory. Railroad lines serving German supply routes. Telegraph poles carrying military communications. Bridges spanning rivers that German reinforcements must cross. Over 200 separate attacks occur within 24 hours. German commanders report complete communication breakdown in central France. Wehrmacht units cannot coordinate movements or call for reinforcements. Supply trains derail before reaching Normandy. Tank columns find bridges destroyed and roads blocked. Witherington's network paralyzes German response to the Allied landings. Muriel Bike operates in eastern France near the Swiss border. She's 31 years old, South African citizen recruited by SOE in London, trained as radio operator and courier, codename Michelle. She parachutes into France on April 8, 1944. Her mission is coordinating with resistance groups attacking German supply lines from Switzerland. Bike establishes contact with Maquis units operating in Vosges Mountains. She organizes attacks on railroad tunnels carrying German equipment toward Normandy. Her groups plant explosive charges in mountain passes. German supply convoys face constant ambushes and sabotage. Bike transmits damage reports and requests additional weapons from London. May 21, 1944. German counterintelligence arrests Bike during a resistance meeting in Belfort. They torture her for information about sabotage operations and radio frequencies. Bike reveals nothing useful to her interrogators. Gestapo transfers her to Ravensbrück concentration camp. She survives the war and returns to South Africa in 1945. Denise Bloch parachutes into France on March 2, 1944. She's 22 years old. French citizen recruited by SOE in London, trained as radio operator, codename Danielle. Her mission is re-establishing communications with resistance networks, whose radios were captured by German counterintelligence. Bloch operates from Nantua region in southeastern France. She works with local Maquis groups planning sabotage operations for the Allied invasion. Her radio transmissions coordinate arms drops and report German defensive preparations. Bloch trains resistance members in radio procedure and codes security protocols. June 30th, 1944. German agents arrest Bloch at her transmission site near Clairvaux-le-Lac. Counterintelligence had tracked her radio signals using direction-finding equipment. They capture her radio and codebooks. Under torture, Bloch maintains operational security and reveals no network details. She dies at Ravensbrück on January 25, 1945. Cécile Lefort operates in southwestern France. She's 24 years old, British citizen of French birth. SOE trains her as organizer and courier, codename Alice. She parachutes into France on June 16, 1943. Her mission is coordinating between different resistance groups and British intelligence networks. Lefort poses as a teacher working in rural schools. This cover provides access to multiple villages and communities. She carries messages between resistance cells and organizes meetings with local leaders. Lefort reports German troop movements and fortification work to London via radio operators. September 15, 1943. German counterintelligence arrests Lefort during a resistance operation near Montluçon. They had infiltrated the local network through a captured agent. Lefort destroys her papers and maintains her cover story under interrogation. Gestapo transfers her to Ravensbrück. She dies there on February 23 of 1945. Sonia Olshanesky, works as courier for resistance networks in northern France. She's 22 years old, French citizen born to Russian émigré parents. SOE recruits her for missions near Normandy coast. She speaks French, Russian and English fluently. Olshanesky photographs German coastal defenses and reports construction details to London. Olshanesky travels by bicycle between coastal towns, mapping German fortifications. She poses as a student visiting libraries for research. Hidden cameras photograph bunker positions and artillery placements. This intelligence helps Allied planners identify landing zones and bombardment targets for D-Day operations. May 16, 1944. German agents arrest Olshanesky during a routine identity check in Dieppe. Counterintelligence suspects her activities based on travel patterns. They find photographic equipment and resistance contact information. Under torture, Olshanesky reveals nothing about intelligence operations. She dies at Natzweiler camp on July 6, 1944. Madeleine Levine operates radio networks in Brittany. She's 26 years old, French resistance member working with British intelligence. Her network spans from Saint-Nazaire to Brest, covering German submarine bases and coastal defenses. Levine coordinates with fishing boats, smuggling agents and supplies along the coast. Levine's radio transmissions report German naval activities and fortification work. Her network photographs submarine pens and harbor defenses. This intelligence helps Allied bombers target German naval installations. Levine organizes sabotage operations against communications cables and railroad lines serving German bases. German direction-finding equipment searches continuously for Levinia's transmissions. She changes location every night and varies transmission schedules. Local fishermen provide safe houses and transportation. Levine trains backup radio operators to maintain communications if she is captured. Josephine Butler leads resistance operations in Loire Valley. She's 33 years old, Irish citizen working with French resistance networks. Butler organizes arms drops and distributes weapons to Maquis groups. Her network attacks German supply convoys traveling toward Normandy coast during the invasion period. Butler poses as a wine merchant traveling between vineyards. This cover provides access to rural areas where resistance groups operate. She carries order forms and wine samples concealing coded messages and radio components. Butler recruits vineyard owners and farm workers for resistance activities. June 7, 1944. Butler's network destroys railroad bridge at Celles-sur-Cher, blocking German reinforcements moving toward invasion beaches. Explosive charges sever steel spans and damage stone foundations. German engineers require 6 days to restore rail traffic. Wehrmacht units march on foot, adding crucial delays to their deployment. Christina Skarbek infiltrates German-held territory through multiple routes. She's 35 years old, Polish aristocrat working for British intelligence. Skarbek speaks 9 languages and holds diplomatic contacts across Europe. She carries intelligence reports between resistance networks and Allied headquarters. Skarbek operates along Swiss-French border, using mountain climbing skills for clandestine crossings. She poses as a wealthy tourist visiting alpine resorts. This cover provides access to German officers and administrative personnel. Skarbek gathers intelligence about defensive preparations and troop dispositions. March 1944, Skarbek organizes prison break, freeing captured resistance leaders from German custody. She bribes guards and creates diversion, allowing 12 prisoners to escape. These leaders return to their networks and resume sabotage operations during the invasion period. German counterintelligence increases security but cannot prevent further escapes. Marguerite Petitjean coordinates urban resistance in occupied Paris. She's 28 years old, French citizen working as secretary in German administrative offices. This position provides access to military correspondence and operational orders. Petitjean photographs documents and passes intelligence to resistance networks. Petitjean organizes safe houses for Allied airmen shot down over France. Her network guides escaped prisoners through Paris to southern France. They use metro tunnels and sewer systems to avoid German patrols. Petitjean maintains contact with other resistance cells, through coded newspaper advertisements. German security services investigate intelligence leaks from administrative offices. They install surveillance equipment and monitor staff activities. Petitjean varies her photography methods and timing to avoid detection. She recruits additional sources in different government departments to maintain intelligence flow. Jacqueline Niern operates as courier between resistance cells in central France. She's 22 years old. British citizen born in France, sister of radio operator Eileen Niern. SOE trains both sisters for operations in occupied territory. Jacqueline parachutes into France on January 25, 1944. Niern poses as a shop assistant in small provincial towns. This cover allows frequent travel between locations carrying messages and supplies. She memorizes coded instructions and destroys written materials after delivery. Niern coordinates between different resistance groups, planning coordinated sabotage operations. German counterintelligence suspects courier activities in her operational area. They increase identity checks and surveillance operations. Niern varies travel routes and timing to avoid detection patterns. She establishes backup communication methods through local church networks and farming cooperatives. The intelligence network reveals stunning scope. Over 800 female agents operated in occupied France during 1944. They transmitted 15,000 radio messages to London between January and June. These communications provided targeting data for Allied bombing campaigns, German supply depots, railroad junctions, communication centers, ammunition warehouses. Female resistance members guided Allied bombers to high-value targets across occupied Europe. They operated navigation beacons and ground signals for night bombing raids. Air Force records show bombing accuracy increased 40% when resistance networks provided target guidance. German industrial production declined 25% due to precision attacks on key facilities. Transport sabotage operations reached peak intensity during Invasion Week. Female operatives cut over 3,000 railroad lines between German reserves and Normandy beaches. They destroyed 47 major bridges and severed hundreds of communication cables. Wehrmacht commanders reported complete loss of tactical communications across northern France. German records reveal the price of resistance. Gestapo arrest files list 12,000 French women detained for resistance activities between 1943 and 1944. Execution orders name 4,000 women shot or guillotined for intelligence operations. Concentration camp records show 8,000 women died in custody from torture, disease, and execution. Individual stories emerge from classified archives. Marie Chilver parachutes into France on June 4, 1944, 2 days before D-Day. Her mission is establishing emergency communications if main radio networks fail. German patrols capture her aircraft during landing. Chilver escapes on foot and completes her mission. She transmits invasion success reports from hiding places in Norman countryside. Liberation records show remarkable survival stories. Yvonne Fontaine spends 14 months in solitary confinement at Fresnes prison. German interrogators torture her weekly seeking resistance intelligence. Fontaine reveals nothing useful to enemy agents. Allied forces liberate Paris, finding her barely alive in prison hospital. She weighs 68 pounds. Pre-capture weight, 130 pounds. Post-war investigations reveal German counterintelligence capabilities. They operated over 200 direction-finding stations across occupied France. Mobile detection vans patrolled constantly searching for resistance transmissions. German agents infiltrated numerous resistance networks through captured radios and forced cooperation. Counterintelligence files show they identified locations of 60% of active resistance transmitters. Yet the network survived and succeeded. Backup radio operators replaced captured agents within days. Alternative communication methods maintained intelligence flow when radio networks failed. Coded newspaper advertisements, church bell signals, market stall arrangements. Resistance members developed multiple redundant systems, ensuring operational continuity. Statistical analysis reveals strategic impact. German defensive preparations along Atlantic Wall required constant communication with Berlin headquarters. Resistance sabotage reduced German communication capacity by 70% during invasion week. Wehrmacht commanders could not coordinate defensive responses or call for reinforcements effectively. Allied intelligence assessments credit female agents with providing 30% of actionable intelligence used for D-Day planning. Their reports identified German reserve positions, supply routes, and defensive weak points. This information allowed Allied forces to exploit gaps in German defenses and achieve breakthrough victories on invasion beaches. 1995. French construction workers excavate a building site in Suresnes. They uncover Noor Khan's original radio equipment, buried where she hid it before capture. The transmitter still contains her final unsent message: "Invasion preparations complete. German reserves moving north. Send instructions." The radio sits in a London museum now. Visitors read the placard mentioning courage and sacrifice. They don't see the deeper truth written in classified files. Without these women, D-Day fails. Allied forces face prepared defenses and coordinated German responses. Casualties multiply beyond acceptable limits. The invasion might succeed eventually, but thousands more soldiers die on Norman beaches. Instead, resistance intelligence created chaos behind German lines, severed communications, destroyed supply routes, eliminated coordination between defensive units. Wehrmacht commanders fought blind, while Allied forces exploited every advantage their female agents provided. Victory came through intelligence, sabotage, and sacrifice measured in unmarked graves across occupied France. 50 years too late to thank them properly.